Hi everyone, this is the fourth lecture of week 7, and you can listen to this as an audio, and please read Exodus 5 through 10, which is about the plagues, before you listen to this lecture. By Exodus 5, Moses and Aaron have now made it back to Egypt, okay, and now stand in front of Pharaoh. And when they appear before Pharaoh, they state that Yahweh has demanded that Pharaoh let the Israelites go in order to celebrate a festival in the desert. Okay, and that if they are not given permission to go, Yahweh will unleash pestilence and death. Okay, notice that, and this is how Exodus 5 begins, okay, and notice that there seems to be some fibbing going on a little bit, right, where Moses and Aaron are like pretending like the Israelites are going to go for a short trip and like return or something. Okay, we don't know why they're doing this. And to this demand, request, I guess, Pharaoh replies that he has never heard of this God called Yahweh. Okay, and in so doing, by not acknowledging Yahweh and by professing to not know this deity, what is being set up going forward is that that the narrative that comes after will be a contest between two gods. Okay, between Pharaoh, who is seen as a god, and Yahweh, another God who seems eager to prove himself, right? To show the people and Pharaoh who he is, right? Again, I don't know who this guy is, right? And to demonstrate how much more powerful he is than Pharaoh, this other, opposing God, okay? And the reason why Yahweh does this, or the reason why the Exodus narrative is set up as this kind of contest between deities, is because Yahweh wants to, this is a part of the narrative where Yahweh is trying to prove to his people that they should, instead of following or treating Pharaoh as their overlord and God, instead switch their allegiance to a much more powerful deity, Yahweh, and take him on as their God and ruler, okay? So that's the reason for it, okay? And therefore, much of the narrative that follow, tries to show the reader in a variety of different ways how Pharaoh is not a true God and certainly a lesser God than Yahweh. Okay, now we are told that as a result of this kind of demand, right, Pharaoh makes the workload more difficult for the Israelites, which angers the Israelites, who turn immediately against Moses and Aaron, and they say to them, why did you come here and piss off our Egyptian overlords? Okay, which seems to be a rather ungrateful reaction by the Israelites. And this will really set up a pattern. This will become the norm, especially when the Israelites are finally allowed to leave and they are wandering around in the desert. There will be a constant pattern of the Israelites complaining, God getting angry, therefore Moses having to step in and play the part of the intercessor, or kind of like the parental figure, separating an angry, complaining people from their violent, trigger-happy deity. Okay. So there's lots of fun things to come. By Exodus 7, we have the beginning of the Battle of the Magicians. Okay, so notice that, magic is really another word for occultic keys, really just stuff, right? Okay. And it begins with two magical feats, both done by Aaron. So this is probably edited by pro-Aaronite priests, okay? And in the first sort of run-up to the magical contest, Aaron, we are told, turns his staff into a snake, right? And the Pharaoh's magicians, the other kind of magicians, opposing magicians, I guess, they're able to replicate that. They also are able to turn their staff into snakes. Of course, we are told that Aaron's snake swallows up the other guy's snakes, okay, again, showing that Aaron's God is much more powerful, or Aaron's magic is much more powerful. The staff, or in this case, the shepherd's staff, really is important because it was a symbol or an emblem of kingship. Okay, and again, like I said, this battle is really a battle for Yahweh to become the true king of Israel, true ruler, true deity. Okay, and so kings were frequently imagined to be shepherds, and there's ancient Near Eastern art with kings pictured with a staff in their hands, a shepherd's staff in their hands. And so why were staffs emblems of kingship? Okay, well, it's not that hard to figure out, right? I mean, this is an agricultural context, right? Also, like shepherds, kings led and herded people. who are like the sheep, okay? And sheep, interestingly enough, if you've ever met sheep or have experiences with sheep, they are very stupid. Sheep are very dumb. So there's some like interesting statement here about what it's like to lead people. Democracy, this is not, nor a very good vision of people. Okay, so the staff of Pharaoh's magicians being swallowed up by Aaron's staff is telling, as it again hints, that Yahweh is the most powerful deity, the most powerful ruler, and therefore Yahweh will come to replace Pharaoh as a shepherd or king or ruler over the people Israel. Okay, these two magical feats are followed by the first plague. Okay, the Nile being turned into blood. And this was, of course, a big deal because the Nile was the lifeblood, okay, the kind of, of Egypt, okay? Moreover, the Nile being a river, again, symbolizing, therefore, this kind of ancient water deitist, usually, who is the ancient enemy of God. So the fact that God has mastery over the Nile means that he can control water, right? So it plays on a very old trope. Okay. Not only that, because the Nile was so important and life generating, right? It was used for all the crop growing and food. In essence, Yahweh is cutting off the food and water supply to the entire nation. Okay. And of course, in so doing, Yahweh shows that it is not Pharaoh, but God who is the master of life, food, and fertility, even in Egypt, which is not even God's or Yahweh's country. Okay, and of course, in that universe, it was the king who was imagined as in control of the fertility of the land. Okay, this first plague is followed by a series of 10 other plagues in Exodus 7 through 10, and I'm going to go over many of them here. In the final form of the text from Exodus as we have it, the 10 plagues consist of, the first one, Nile to blood, then frogs, gnats, flies, cattle disease, boils, thunder and hail, locusts, darkness, and finally the death of the firstborn, okay, of Egypt, the last plague I'm going to discuss in the next video, okay. Perhaps testifying to the oral roots of this story, or the fact that it was passed along for a while, maybe with slightly different variations. The 10 plagues differ a little bit in Psalms 78 and Psalms 105, okay. However, though there's variations about the plagues, probably in one telling you had these assortment of plagues, and another telling you may have a different assortment of plagues. The final plague, the climactic final plague, it's always the death of the firstborn. Okay. Several things to note as you read the plague narrative, okay? First is that initially the Egyptian magicians are able to keep up, at least superficially, okay? But by Exodus 8, they can't, okay? And there's even points where Pharaoh has to ask Moses and Aaron to pray to Yahweh to remove some of the plagues. Again, right, showing how Yahweh is much more powerful than Pharaoh and his magicians, okay? We are also told that by the time of the plague of hail in Exodus 9, 25 and 26, okay, verses 25 and 26, God is starting to make a distinction or a separation between his people, the Israelites, and the Egyptians, as only the Egyptians, we are told, are afflicted with this plague. Okay, and of course, this shows that the plagues are not random acts of nature, but specifically targeted to show how Yahweh is more powerful than Pharaoh. Okay, that Yahweh is better able to protect and defend Yahweh's own people against this other false god. Okay, the plagues all are related to nature, and really, if you start thinking about what they have in common, they are all things that have to do with the fertility or productivity of the land. Okay, concerning water or agricultural productivity, or finally human productivity, right, or reproduction, right. Some have argued that maybe each of the plagues are targeting particular gods in the Egyptian pantheon, possibly, okay? Remember that Egypt was the breadbasket of the world, right? Well known for its fertility and fecundity and agriculture, right? That's why the Israelites keep running to Egypt anytime there's famine, okay? So you have a pretty radical theological assertion here in the depiction of Yahweh targeting Egypt's kind of fertility, okay? Namely, in Exodus, we are told that it is Yahweh, okay, who is in charge of almost all fertility, not just Egyptian fertility, right? Hence, it is Yahweh, not Pharaoh, despite Pharaoh being Egypt's ruler, who is in charge of food and life and reproduction, especially of Israel. Okay, and you want to keep this in mind when we come to the final plague, and what the final plague might be kind of comeuppance or payback for. Okay. So not only is the plague narratives interested in showing you that it is Yahweh who is in charge of the reproduction and life of Israel, but interrelated to this, of course, these narratives are interested in showing that Yahweh is a bigger, stronger deity over against Pharaoh. Okay, and it is because the narrative is so keenly interested in showing you and proving to you that Yahweh is stronger than Pharaoh, that in part explains the strange back and forth that you might have noticed if you read the text of the plague narrative. Okay, when you read the plague narrative, you keep seeing Pharaoh kind of wishy-washingly changing his mind. Okay, so he's like ready to let the Israelites go, or at least like entertaining it, because I don't know, there might have been a particularly bad plague that the country suffered. And then we are told something like his heart changed, became hardened. Sometimes it's said that God hardened his heart. Sometimes he hardens his own heart. Something happens to his heart, and all of a sudden Pharaoh changes his mind. Okay, so he's predicted as really wishy-washy. Okay. Indeed, if you start paying attention to Pharaoh's heart and this heart hardening language, right, what you realize is that there are three ways that the heart of Pharaoh is described in the plague narrative. Okay, it says, so one, okay, in some instances, it says that Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the Israelites go. And you see this in chapters 7, verse 3, chapter 10, verse 1, and verse 20 and verse 27, chapter 11 and 10. Okay. There's a second way that Pharaoh's heart is described, right? And it's kind of as a, what do you call that? Sort of further away, okay? Passive, right? That Pharaoh's heart was hardened, okay? And you see this in chapter 7, verses 13 and 22, and chapter 8, verses 19, and chapter 9, verses 7 and 35, okay? Lastly, there's a third way that Pharaoh's heart is described, and it's the simplest one, which is that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Okay, and you find this in Exodus 8, verse 15 and 32, and in Exodus 9, verse 34. Okay, and there's a reason why there are these like a variety of ways that Pharaoh's heart is described, and it seems to hint that the writers ran into some trouble with trying to get the right depiction of Yahweh. Okay, so let's begin with the statement that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, because I think it's the most blatantly evident what's going on. Okay, in Exodus 7, at the very end, okay, the text tells you directly why God is going to allow or do this whole hardening of the heart thing. Okay, and this is before the magical contest even begins. Okay, and again, this God in Exodus is the God of Joseph, i.e. a God with a plan. Okay, so in chapter 7, verses 1, this is what it says, okay, and following. The Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. Again, this weird thing. You shall speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron shall tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his land. But, verse 3, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and I will multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. And when Pharaoh does not listen to you, I will lay my hand upon Egypt and bring my people, the Israelites, company by company, out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out from among them. Okay, so like I said, like the God of Joseph, right, or in the Joseph narrative, this Yahweh here has a whole plan for how this thing is going to happen. Okay, and we're even told why Yahweh is doing this, right? Yahweh needs to show that he is a really, really tough God, tougher than Pharaoh, so that the Israelites will decide to follow Yahweh, make him their new God and leader. Okay. However, right, if Pharaoh too, if the point is to show how tough Yahweh is, right, that means you got to give the people a good fight, right? If Pharaoh folds too easily, if Pharaoh were to say, just go, who cares? I don't care. I can get other labor. Okay. Notice that this will kind of work against Yahweh's plan to show that he is a better leader than Pharaoh. Okay. So, to make sure that doesn't happen, Yahweh has a plan. What's he going to do? Well, he's going to keep escalating the fight so that it's a good fight. Okay. If Pharaoh gets close to letting the Israelites go, then God will harden his heart. So Pharaoh will not let the Israelites go. Okay. And we are told that the reason why he does this is so that Yahweh, again, can give everyone a good fight. So that Yahweh can beat up on Pharaoh and the Egyptians some more. Okay. Why? Because by putting on a good show, by putting on a good fight, you can show that Yahweh is the bigger, tougher deity. Okay. In short, Yahweh is hankering for a fight. Okay. And so what Yahweh does is whenever it looks like his opponent is about to call out, right, or admit defeat, Yahweh changes his opponent Pharaoh's heart so that he stays in the fight in order to get beaten up some more. Okay. Just FYI, this hardening of Pharaoh's heart, by heart in the biblical text, you want to move all your organs down one position, okay? By heart, what they mean is really not just the heart, not just your feelings, but also your brains, your judgment, your decision-making center, okay? And notice that by hardening, right, by saying that Yahweh can control Pharaoh's heart, his decision-making area, right? Notice how much more powerful Yahweh is portrayed over against Pharaoh, right? Yahweh is such a big, powerful, tough God that he can even alter the heart of another deity. Okay. Now, this sounds great, right? Except, well, you hit sort of a problem with portraying Yahweh as being too violent or too tough. Okay. And that is the fact that Yahweh comes off as a bit of a bully. Okay. And so notice the conundrum the writers are in. If Yahweh is too powerful, okay, so much more powerful than Pharaoh, his opponent, then this is no longer a fair contest. Okay. Indeed, if God is able to control Pharaoh's heart, his mind, so that anytime Pharaoh decides to let the Israelites go, Yahweh comes in, controls him, gets to change his mind so that Yahweh can beat him up some more. I mean, this God is, then a big bully. He's targeting someone who is so beneath him. Okay. Another way to put it is, this is not, if God is too mighty, okay, this is not a fair fight, okay? And notice how in this scenario with God hardening Pharaoh's heart directly, it's not Pharaoh's fault for not letting the people go. He's being controlled by Yahweh so that Yahweh can beat him and the Egyptians up some more, right? This is not necessarily a favorable vision of God, okay? As this kind of big bully, okay? Now, notice also that if Yahweh is too powerful, this counteracts kind of the goals, okay, that the writer may have, or certainly the goals that God seems to have, okay, which is what? To demonstrate to the Israelites how big and powerful he is, okay? And what I mean is this, you don't really demonstrate what a tough guy you are by beating up on somebody much weaker than you. Okay, that's not really how you show that you're tough and powerful, right? So it'd be like Mike Tyson beating up a child, right? What does that prove except that Mike Tyson is a bad person? Okay. Rather, the only way for Yahweh to effectively demonstrate that he is more powerful and stronger than Pharaoh is if Pharaoh is a worthy enough enemy, if Pharaoh himself has enough power that he can fight God on kind of equal terms. That's really the only way, that this is a fair fight, and that Yahweh can prove that he is the stronger, better God, right? Pharaoh, in other words, has to be kind of like Evander Holyfield or something closer to it, okay? Otherwise, it's not a fair fight, okay? And this is the problem that the writers are in, right? Yahweh cannot be too weak, right? So they want to say that Yahweh is so big and powerful that he gets to control Pharaoh's heart. But yet, if they say that too much, they say that Yahweh does control Pharaoh's heart, then Pharaoh is no longer to be blamed for what happens, and Pharaoh is then positioned as too weak. Okay, so so they keep kind of going back and forth, right? And that's in part why we think there are so many different ways that Pharaoh's heart being hardened is described. Okay, the biblical text didn't quite know how to get this kind of middle position right, and that's why it says that, oh, I don't know, Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Wait, no, God hardened his heart. Wait, no, maybe his heart was just hardened. Okay, this heart business, okay, is really it's an interesting kind of ethical dilemma, right? But it's a rather mild ethical problem, okay, especially when we come to the final plague. And for that, turn to the next video.